3. Sources of the methods of training. The sources of training in the classical art of riding can best be found by the following method employed at the Spanish riding school. Unfortunately, this method has been based almost exclusively on oral tradition, as the few existing records are incomplete. The most valuable reference is given in Directives, published by H. E. von Holbein in 1898. These, although they only give general outlines, reveal the extraordinary knowledge of the author as he points out the method of training to be followed at the school. Beginning with the principle that working to a fixed pattern would be detrimental to any art, this book does not lay down fixed rules, but gives a line to follow which should help a rider to maintain a methodical system while training his horse. As a guide, the following books are recommended. They do not contradict each other, but follow the same line of thought. De la Guenière, 1751. Max Ritter von Weihother, 1814. Louis Seeger, 1844, Baron von Oenhausen, 1845 to 1865, and the Regulations for the Austro-Hungarian Cavalry. A short description of these books and their authors seems necessary. François Rubicon de la Guenière, whose importance has already been mentioned, was Master of Horse to King Louis XV of France. He is heard of for the first time in 1716 when he took over the famous riding academy in Paris, which he previously had been directed by his teacher François-Ané de Vindeuil. From 1730 till his death in 1751, Guenière directed the royal stables in the Tuileries, which had been founded by Pluvinel, the teacher of Louis XIII 100 years before. Guenière's book École de la Cavalerie was published for the first time in 1733 and republished between the years 1740 and 1802 under various titles. Because of its clarity and importance, it was mentioned by von Holbein as a basis for the fundamental training at the Spanish riding school. In the introduction to his book, Guenière says that he not only studied the books by the best authors and has supplemented their teaching by his own experiences and the advice of his teacher de Vindeuil and his predecessors Duplessis and de la Vallière. The École de Cavalerie consists of 3 chapters. 1. Knowledge of the horse in and out of the stable. 2. Training. 3. Treatment of illness. This classification clearly shows what knowledge is expected from a rider, which should also apply to the riders of the present day. Guenière's aim was to obtain by systematic work a riding horse that was quiet, supple, and obedient, pleasant in his movements, and comfortable for his rider. These are requirements for any school horse, hunter, or charger, and we've said the methods employed by this famous riding master have been preserved by the Spanish riding school. Max Ritter von Weihother was the most outstanding member of the family of outstanding riders. He came to the Spanish riding school in 1813. He was made head rider in 1825 and died in 1833. There are no records of his age. In 1814, Weihother published a small book on how to select a proper curb bit. After his death, he was published in 1836 under the title Extracts from Papers collected by friends of Max Ritter von Weihother and published after his death. These extracts gave some idea of the reputation of this man, and they show that he was asked to prepare a plan of training for the Austro-Hungarian Cavalry School. In this little book, we find the principles of training employed at the school today, which is the best proof of the quality of his teaching and the heritage he handed down to the successive head riders who followed him. Weihother, who strictly followed Guenière's teachings, deals in his papers mainly with the training of the rider. He has coined the phrase, the thinking rider, still in use at the school, underlining the necessity of reinforcing practical ability with theoretical knowledge. His reputation has spread far beyond the frontiers of Austria. The German Baron von Biel, in his book The Noble Horse, published in 1813, states that he was much distressed to find that the noble art of riding was no longer to be found in Germany, inasmuch as the horses were overbent and exaggerated in an unnatural way. On visiting the Spanish riding school in Vienna, he found the training based on very different methods. Head rider Weihother made it clear to him what those methods were, and he came to the conclusion that any breeder would be lucky to have his horses trained under those principles. No one would then dare to state that the noble English horse was not suitable for the art of riding. Louis Seeger opened the first private riding school in Berlin, and in 1844 published his book, System of the Art of Riding, for which he received a gold medal. He also published in 1852 Monsieur Boucher and His Methods, which was a serious warning to the German riders, expressing his opinion of the harm being done to the art of riding by the French riding master. Seeger was a pupil of Max von Weihother. His system was completely under the influence of his teacher and in accordance with the principles taught at the Spanish riding school, which maintains that a school horse must always be a perfect horse for everyday purposes. In this book, the reader will find complete sentences from Weihother's extracts, supplemented by the author's experiences and more fully explained. He lays down the principles of Gagne and Weihother in a methodical sequence. He also allocates considerable space to the laws of balance and proves his theories by the laws of physics. Unfortunately, his instructions about raising the head and neck of the horse and the use of the spur were often misunderstood. It is to Seeger's credit that, unlike his contemporaries, he wrote a simple book which gives valuable information even today. Baron von Oeynhausen came from the aristocratic family of riders in the north of Germany. He received training at various German riding schools and for many years was an instructor and second in command of the military equitation school in Salzburg. Oeynhausen published several books between 1850 and 1869 based on the theoretical lectures he gave at the military school. In the preface to one of his early books, he states that it has been his object to collect and spread all principles that might be of use of the training of the horse. And as a result, he quotes from many other writers. Weihother's influence particularly is evident throughout these books, for he is quoted word for word. It is not known whether Oeynhausen was a pupil of Weihother or ever at the Spanish riding school, but in his writings he shows a great knowledge of the methods employed at the school and of the school jumps, which he was unlikely to have seen anywhere else. The last reference to the training at the Spanish riding school mentioned by H.E. von Holbein is to the instructions for the Austrian cavalry, which coincides almost completely with the books of Weihother, Seeger, and Oeynhausen. If editions of these instructions published from 1873 to 1898 for a few expressions. The 1898 edition was used for the cavalry in Austria until 1938. H.E. von Holbein himself can claim the credit for having first laid down the instructions for training at the Spanish riding school. He published these directives in 1898, and the same year was appointed the director of the school, a position he held until October of 1901. In the introduction to his directives, he points to the fact that the shorter time allowed for training and the universal demand for speed has caused a decline in the art of riding throughout the various armies. In view of this situation, it seems more necessary than ever to preserve an institution such as the Spanish riding school, where the equestrian art is cultivated to the highest perfection. The deeper meaning of the high school is to preserve the principles and experiences of the art of riding as a means of showing how to best and most quickly train a rider and teach the horse to submit himself to the rider's will. Every rider at the school must have a thorough understanding of his purpose, and to reach his goal, he must give to it all his mental and physical abilities. The high school must never be practiced as an art on its own, allowing the training to become unbalanced. It must be built up in all three phases of riding, each of which has an equally important part to play. Phase 1. Riding the horse with a natural carriage on straight lines in the ordinary paces in free forward movement with rein in contact and on a long rein. This is known as riding straight forward. This kind of riding may be practiced by itself alone. Phase 2. riding the collected horse in turns and circles in all paces, in America commonly called gaits, and in perfect balance. This is known as the campaign school. It improves the natural impulsion of the horse, cultivates his carriage and paces, strengthens his muscles, and makes his joints supple and flexible. The proficiency and stamina of the horse will be increased, his intelligence and understanding awakened, and the rider is given a line of conduct to be followed for further training. In the campaign school, the ordinary natural paces and cross-country jumping will be developed. The horse will be given the necessary bend in ribs, neck, and gullet, as well as the correct position appropriate for his conformation. This second phase of riding has to be developed from the first, and presents the only possible preparation for the third, namely the high school. Only on this foundation can the rider proceed to art, that is, to high school, because nature can exist without art, but art can never exist without nature. Phase 3. Riding the horse in greater collection with regularity, suppleness, and proficiency, and with an increased bend in the joints of the hind legs in all ordinary paces, as well as the less ordinary paces and jumps that could be copied from nature. These movements, developed by training to the highest perfection, are called high school. This phase of riding cannot exist without the first two, and especially without the campaign school. It unites all three phases. In principle, the fully trained school horse must always be able to show the same standard of excellence as an all-purpose horse as he does as a school horse. H.E. von Holbein points out that by making high school so artificial, a gap has been created between school riding and the campaign riding to the disadvantages of both. There is no reason to separate the movements of campaign riding from those of the high school. Every effort must be made to clarify and simplify the instructions and the theories that have been handed down by word of mouth, and to follow the doctrines of only those masters who have proved themselves by showing that the horse can be trained to the highest proficiency, even of the high school, by natural methods and without constraint. Every rider at the Spanish riding school should strive to bring campaign riding and school riding closer together, at the same time preserving the independence of both. Every rider must be perfectly clear on his own mind as to which phase of training his horse is in, as well as the method to be followed in his lessons and the goal he wishes to achieve. Every rider must not only ride, but also think, and only a thinking rider will be able to attain his goal in a relative short time without spoiling his horse. As a conclusion, H.E. von Holbein states in his directives that the art of riding must be divorced from all mystery by simplicity and truth. The rebirth of the high school will then be possible and free from all false doctrines and medieval conceptions, so that riding may again be acknowledged as an art within the reach of every serious rider. Enumerated above are the sources from which the training at the Spanish riding school has been developed. It has seemed necessary to draw attention to these sources in order to emphasize the purity of the method of training and to underline the fact that the principles of the art of riding have not been altered, although they have largely been handed down by word of mouth from one generation to another. On the contrary, the study of the sources proves that the school still cultivates the classical art of riding in spite of the upheavals that Europe has undergone in the present century, and that it has strived to live up to its great tradition. One more fact that this study has revealed is that the art of training a horse is based on the laws of nature and has not outlived itself, that it has not been replaced by modern methods, but has been preserved and still remains alive.